Welcome, everyone. It's good to see familiar and some new faces here. This is the quarterly Power BI convening. So, 4 times per year, we get together as the California Community College system and talk about our use of Power BI and kind of help each other with tips and tricks and troubleshooting. It's meant to be a collaborative space for professional development. And so we welcome you to ask questions and um, work together. We did delay this meeting slightly just due to the start of the term, but normally we meet on the third or fourth Thursday of the month. So thanks for being here. We delayed this from January. And a few more office hours things. We record these sessions, so the session is being recorded, and as soon as possible, we'll get this session out to everyone, as well as actually the October convening, which has not yet been released, though we do have a recording of that one too. I'll introduce our moderators. So my name is Katie Wilson. I am here with Stephen Butler, Jaime Rodriguez, and Daniel Martinez, who is not with us today. We are the 4 folks behind the scenes who kind of organize these events and reach out to you all to get participation. So we really thank you for joining us. And our main event today is David Boutrone is here with us to talk about his guided pathways dashboard and talk about maybe simplifying some more complex data sets and complex dashboards to make them easier for folks to use. Anything else from Stephen or Jaime before I pass it over to David?
No, thank you.
I think that's it. Great job, Katie. Thanks.
David, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So I'm gonna let's see if I can share my screen real quick to yes, I can. Perfect. All right. Share. There we go. So I put this report together to better focus on creating dashboards that are simpler instead of more complex. So a little bit of backstory behind this specific report here is the guided pathways dashboard that we put together at our office for district consumption as well as college use to track a lot of the metrics that are used for guided pathways, such as the momentum points, first-time students, cohort tracking. So it's based on a cohort model, and that kind of helps folks at the colleges see or adjust some of the implementations behind the guided pathways, transfer level English in the first year, completion metrics, persistence, and so forth. So one thing that I was thinking about when I put this report together was personally, I'd like to have a lot of options when I filter through things, when I create slicers, when I look at data. And I think there's a fine line between what is consumable versus what is very, let's say, practical or informative. So this report was an effort to kind of take a step back and say, well, maybe less might be more in this case, considering oftentimes, yes, I think every report, whether it's intricate, complex, has its place depending on the audience and several other dimensions. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. What can it look like for a report to be instead of more intricate to be simpler? And what would that look like in terms of the users who use them and how it's shared and how it's processed? Okay. So we've created a lot of reports in our office. I know Stephen Butler has created a lot. I've created a bunch as well over the years. And oftentimes there may be a disconnect between folks that use the reports and folks that create the reports. And for me, I was laboring under the assumption that if I add more filters, if I add this, oh, it's going to be even more helpful. And this is just gonna, it's going to have everything all encapsulated in like one report. And again, sometimes the user will look at this and say, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. And it could push people away from actually engaging with the data and asking questions because it could be intimidating. And um, when we were asked to put together the guided pathways report, I wanted to take a step back and say, who's the user audience? How is it going to be used? And how can we simplify this, because some of the feedback we were getting or around complexity. A lot of the folks, didn't know how to navigate the dashboard. There was too many options, and it was just kind of confusing. So I went back to the basics to kind of figure out, okay, how can we do this a different route that would also land us in the same sort of destination of engaging the folks at the colleges, um, having discussion points around the data and so forth. So the first point, the challenges of complex dashboards. These can sometimes confuse the users, having too many filters, multiple visuals. It's sometimes a fine line to figure out, how many visuals should I put in this page? I always feel like, okay, if I just add a few more, I can answer almost everything in one view, but that's not usually optimal in most cases. Principles of simplification. Sometimes in this case, at least, the goal was to remove unnecessary elements, things that could distract the user, right? What was the focus of this report? If we want it to be actionable, for example, how can we just get anyone that's going to use the report to look at just the main points and be able to understand without having someone to explain to them, this is what you need to do. So that was the ultimate goal behind this report, to make it user friendly, also leveraging some of the on-screen real estate to consider how the data is laid out. So that's something that I do here. Oftentimes, I think we're used to seeing dashboards in it looks more like a rectangle type screen view, and then there's usually tabs to select different types of views, and you can go to different report pages that way. And I explored something different here. I thought perhaps we can look at how folks engage with information online, how they scroll through items on the internet, how they look at data in a different way. So this one, instead of focusing on a more horizontal a view, it takes like a vertical approach where folks can scroll down and toggle and kind of mimic some of that more like the phone type users that scroll down and down. And I think it's interesting, and it's definitely something worth trying to see how how many folks engage that way as well. Um, and lastly, the enhanced data interpretation. The goal of this report was to help folks interpret the data, figure out what's happening, again, with less information, but with clear information. Okay. So this is what the actual report looks like. This is the landing page behind the final product, the Guided Pathways dashboard. Um, So more is how can we do more with less? Again, there's a lot of information we needed to communicate to the folks using these reports. And I wanted to stay away from creating a bunch of separate tabs that take you to different places. Um, again, this was my way of kind of trying to avoid that, but at the same time providing more options without kind of cluttering the real estate, right, of what people are looking at. So it just breaks it down to little chunks. But there's a cohort head counts, and a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory. Where, okay, if I just want to see who is included, I know I would just click on the cohort head counts. If I want to see the demographics, I would click on that. Persistence, is there full-time? If we want to track, let's say, who's part-time, who's full-time. it makes it a little bit easier to kind of just focus on the area you want to look at instead of kind of throwing all the data out there and having folks kind of sift through it and try to make sense of what they're looking at. So from here, they can just navigate to the area of interest. And then we also have transfer level math and English completion and transfer and award completion down at the bottom. So this, I guess this new approach implements a more vertical layout as I described earlier. It matches the top to bottom reading pattern that we usually engage with when we process information, especially from a digital platform. There's also guided narrative flow. The key metrics appear at the top, and then there's more detail when they select on the little orange toggle. It's going to take them to a detailed view of that area with more information. I feel like this is also more accessible. The design enhances readability. It's kind of it's all there. They can always go back to this, and of course, there's always like a README section that explains, what to do and how to navigate this report in case it's needed. And of course, the improved screen real estate. So I wanted to, like I said, move away from the horizontal view and kind of adopt this vertical approach. So this is what it would look like if someone were to click on one of the tabs, right? We have minimize filters. That's something that was oftentimes confusing some of the users. So the purpose of this dashboard was to help folks that are in a certain pathway track their students. So by only adding in two filters, which is the pathway and the actual college versus district view, we kind of just let them see this is what it looks like overall. And you can see certain metrics that they were basically tracking previously in a more I would say it was more difficult to kind of put this all in one place. So these were the metrics they wanted to track, and this kind of lets you just see, okay, out of the starting cohort, who persisted to their primary second term. That's the yellow orange bar there, and then who persisted to their third primary term. So it kind of just lets them see what that looks like in terms of a head count, and then at the bottom they see what the percentage looks like out of the cohort. So it makes it easy to write up reports and determining if there's progress or if we need to improve in certain areas. So we can easily see that, for 23, 24, the persistence rate went slightly down to 53.6. And that kind of helps us keep a bird's eye view of what's going on with each pathway. Okay, so the data toggles were also something that makes it a little bit, I didn't want to add, the difficult part about this was forcing myself not to add in more filters. So I said, what is the bare bone minimum that is needed to understand this data? So I'm like, okay, we need the college filter and we need the pathway one. And of course, it'd be nice to have other things like like demographics. So I did add, I took advantage of I believe it's called, there is a slicer option that lets you alternate what's in the y-axis and the x-axis. So that's something that I also integrated into this dashboard where folks can kind of switch out what they see in terms of the demographics of, let's say they want to look at race, ethnicity. They can toggle that, and it's going to change the actual graphs below that. Again, everything that they toggle is going to be at the top to kind of just train the user that, okay, if I want to change the data, it's only going to be accessible through here. And that way they can kind of look at more with less ultimately. And this helped with training and usability. It made it more digestible for folks at the college to kind of walk through the process with other, let's say, onboarding when they have new people in different pathways, how to track these more easily. And I think it maintains a more cohesive approach to looking at the data. It's very standardized where the pages look very similar and they work in a very similar fashion. Okay. So the users were in mind when this was created. Again, there was limited on-screen choices, comprehension for non-technical users. That was one of our main focuses because, again, when we look at data all day and we navigate this and create reports for a living, we can forget sometimes that a lot of folks that use these, it's very new to them, so it needs to be, I think, basic, at least depending on the purpose of the report. I do believe that more complex reports have their place, but again, this was just an effort to kind of simplify it. Okay. Use plain language. A lot of the jargon or anything that's related to student-centered terminology was described so that folks can easily understand this without having someone explain it to them. And the intentional visual hierarchy was there to highlight what the user should extrapolate from these visuals. And important information and details was something that was presented to them so that they can make sense of that information. And ultimately, one of the goals was also to enhance the user confidence in using dashboards. That's something that we want to encourage district-wide. We want to build a culture of data and folks to have more comfort with expressing, talking about data, and ultimately feeling like, yes, they can communicate with data in a better way. Okay. So standardized approach and consistency was something that was a focus. The templates, they enable consistent data presentations and it make it easier to replicate across different departments. And this ultimately helped with increased user adoption. It makes it easier to access some of these key indicators. There's a lot of discussion that happens around these. I talked to Wendy at RCC, who's using a lot of these reports at her college, and a lot of the feedback around how they're using it really helps because they can easily track these by pathways, and it creates more discussion because folks, when they see their data and they understand what's going on, they can actually speak to, okay, perhaps we're not doing that great or we're doing better than we expected. Now let's go ahead and forecast and what can we modify and adjust. And those are the types of conversations I feel that they should be having instead of, I don't understand what this number is, why does this, I have no idea how to access this information. So that was also something that this report intended to do. Okay, so I can go ahead and I think I provided a link to the dashboard. So this is also shared on our public facing website. And I think you would simply, if you want to see it, you can. It is in, I believe, let me go back real quick. Right here. So if you just type in rccd.edu /data, you would go ahead and be able to see this information a little more closely. And I can go ahead and open the floor for questions.
I kind of put my question in the chat because I'm also working on a pathway analysis. I'm from Palomar. Um, I can I reach out to you about how you're building your underlying cohorts for this rather than the BI side of it? Because I have some, I'm looking into that and trying to build the proper cohorts and just looking for what other folks are doing.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that was that's I think its own presentation, but I think that is that is yeah, that's worth discussing. So I'll be happy to walk you through at least what we did and see
Okay.
how that can be replicated.
Great, great. And so if we could get your email address in the chat or whatever that would be, if you want everybody to contact you. But,
Sure, yeah, of course.
yeah,
I'll put that
awesome.
in there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I just want to say, like, I know I worked with David when he was building this, and while it's all about simplification on the front, the back end of this, like the SQL and stuff, is really complex. So um, it was very intentional, and it's really he's very very good at doing the hiding his heart, the complex stuff and putting the accessible stuff up front.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
David, I just liked the concept of this, and I think you raised a good point about building confidence in the end user, because that is something that I encounter a lot. The more complex our dashboards are, uh, the more often folks either are not using them or feel like they need to come to us for help with interpreting them. So I love this whole idea, and I thank you for presenting. Your presentation was also clear and simple, and I think easy to understand and got some good takeaways. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, I mean, I ask myself, how can we improve what we're doing? I think we all have a role at the colleges, and I feel as though at least this was an opportunity to rethink some of the practices that less might be more in some cases, and the goal again was to kind of foster more discussion, to get folks to build that confidence and to be more engaged. So I feel like as though this report was able to do that because of some of these elements.
Yeah, just want to echo, David, what people have shared. Yeah, awesome presentation. Thank you. And just even going through the dashboards right now, and this is awesome work. One question actually was, can you explain for the group a bit? Like I appreciate the approach, and even I guess you're thinking outside the box in the sense of like taking that vertical approach. And even as I'm looking at the dashboards right now, obviously that vertical approach is key. Um, I think you described it to me in the past, but can you share with the group kind of what went into that? Because it seems like there's a browser, like a web browser aspect to that. Am I understanding that? So it's like there's the dashboard itself, but it seems like there's different dashboards integrated within the browser. And if you can, like, I guess, inform us how you went about that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I can try sharing my screen to kind of just, I think we have a little bit of time. I can walk through some of
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
behind the scenes if you guys are interested. So I'm going to share my whole screen. It makes it easier. So please, um, please bear with me as I try to locate some of this stuff. Okay. So this is what the report looks like. Again, folks can kind of zoom in and zoom out based on, their if it's easy to see or not. But ultimately, the goal is to get folks to scroll down instead of scrolling sideways. So from here, there's certain things that are more intuitive. You just hover over, some icons, you get some information. But then if they click on something, it takes them to this link. And again, if they just want to go back, let's say, oops, I didn't want to click on that, they would just click on this giant arrow that click here to go back. And then they can reselect, let's say, maybe demographics. And so these here are I guess are the field parameters is what they're called in Power BI. And these lets folks toggle the groups that they're looking at. So instead of creating like 5 different tabs, or 3 different, options, one for each district, race, ethnicity, one for gender, one for age group, they can simply switch out the toggle by clicking on gender. Now they can see what that, first-time student headcount looks like by that selection. So that was one way to kind of keep it simple, as well as maintain the information that folks wanted to look at. And it's just head count. There's the 100% bar graph, and then at the bottom here, they have the actual numbers. For some reason, there's always a group of people that say, I need this in a table format. And that was something that, was added in there because of that. And it's just, whatever helps folks digest the information, I'll be happy to help with that. Um, So the report itself, I believe, this is what it looks like. And so traditional reports will look more like this. They'll have, all the different tabs. And again, I did have the tabs, but what I changed was the navigation to those tabs and added in those little toggles that you saw. So the headcount one here, you can see that it looks the same. What I had to do to set up the actual dimensions for this view to work, right, was you have to mess with the actual page dimension. So if I click on, I want to say it's this one here, the formatting pane, there's an option here under, I want to say it is canvas settings. Normally when you create a dashboard, I think the auto option is like one of these, and you have to go down to custom to input the dimension. So here the height is about 1400 pixels, the width is 900, and I maintain that for each page. That way, when it's published on the web, there's also one more step there that lets you maintain those dimensions, right? Maximize width and height so that it's not like scrolling and there's no like bars that would require. So when I publish this information, you can see that it's just clean. There's no scrolling that happens. Everything is contained within that web page. Okay. Let's see. Again, a lot of these metrics were done outside of Power BI. I love using SQL. I feel like Power BI and SQL go very well together. The cohort tracking and the cohort metrics are one of the more complex things that we normally do in terms of data wrangling. So having the data source here for those is actually in SQL, so that the SQL creates the cohorts. If you go to edit query, you can see that it brings in the data ready to go, right? It's there. There's little sort of DAX involved in this process because everything is calculated here through the source, which is done through our SQL server. And then once we get new data in our server, and that's the way it kind of updates itself whenever we get new MIS data, the report just refreshes and it just populates. So there's no manual process that is required to kind of keep this. Rachel, yes, I think I saw your hand up.
Yes, yeah, you did. So this is a public page, which you mentioned, because I can go in and access it. So do you have any issues here with row level security or people getting to the underlying data, or how have you addressed that? Because we're fighting with, we have a dashboard that we're trying to produce that's our student journey metrics, but they're based on multiple data models. And we're trying to figure out how to navigate between them because it's different data models, but also publish it on the website. And so we either have to make it private or do something with navigation. So there's all sorts of stuff going on, but our biggest key is not letting people get to that underlying data, so keeping that row level security. And so wondering how you address that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So anything that's in our public facing dashboard goes through a process to make sure that the data is aggregated and there's no student actual information in there.
Mhm.
So everything that we do that's public facing, what we consulted with I forgot who it was, a consultant about Power BI publishing and how to, because that was a big concern for us as well. How do we ensure that we publish safely, especially if it's something that anyone can access? So we have two different workspaces. We have in-house, that's more for internal consumption type data, and there we can have student IDs depending on who needs access. And then we also have the public-facing workspace, which if you kind of, I don't know if you can see here.
Yeah.
So if you go to your workspaces, what we did is we created an external dashboards workspace. So anything that's published here has to abide by these parameters of data has to be aggregated. It has to be screened before it's even put on here. And if for whatever reason something, it doesn't work out that way, what we would do is we would just shut down the whole workspace and then address it and then re-upload it once it's good to go. So it's just an easier way to control what's publicly out there. And that's what we're doing with this report here. You can see the guided pathways dashboard is in here as well.
Nice. And then in terms of if someone were to download the data, would they be able to identify students without, obviously IDs are out, but could they get down to a level of like, and less than 10, like they see 2 students in a given category? Do you have a way to address that at all, or?
Right. No, I think that's a great question. It's been a few years since I put this one together, but I do recall there was some attention put to like the actual end size, so like
Mhm.
masking, and
Yeah,
that would kind of, if there's like less than 10, then they won't be able to see that information.
nice.
But I think that's a great question. Again, row level security, I don't think it's something that we can do for public facing dashboards. So
Yeah.
we have to figure out a different way to keep the data as safe as possible. But yeah, great questions.
Thank you so much.
David, just a heads up that there's 2 questions in the chat. You might have seen them, one from Renee, another from Amanda.
So Renee, let's see. What are your challenges dealing with HR 946, Plain Writing Act? I'm not sure. Renee, do you mind speaking a little bit more to that? That sounds very interesting.
I hope you can hear me. My camera is dead, so this particular federal law is it's been in the books for a while, but looks like the feds are going to start working very hard on implementing it. And in general terms, I provided the link so you can have more details. But now, basically, everything that any person is going to have access from a public entity has to be available in a way that they can really understand it. And it includes dashboards where you have to describe in detail what the dashboard is all about. So having not only external, but also internal dashboards or images of web pages are impacted because of this law. So dashboards are critical, and Power BI, as far as I know, doesn't have the capabilities right now to allow us to do something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something I was unaware of. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm gonna look into this and see what at least, yeah, if Power BI doesn't have some of these options, then that's a discussion that we're going to have locally. Thank you.
Uh, if I can chime in a little bit, I think so. Like Amanda has a similar, well, kind of related question that talks about accessibility, and that's obviously like one of the kind of a question that always gets raised up, and it's always extra work. But I do believe that the Power BI has actually, like when you look at the any visual, it actually has like one item that says like accessibility, I believe. It's something on the like format pane. Let me just look it up real quick. And you can potentially input like kind of information about what this particular list displays. I'm not sure you can like I don't think it can actually provide kind of like complete overview of what it is. Oh, alt text, yes. So there's an alt text option, which is actually also functional. I mean, there's a FX affix on it, so you can potentially generate kind of descriptions for a specific viz that says this viz displays this information, um, and maybe even provide some actual numbers in there potentially, which probably would be a lot of docs to write in, but it is an option to address it, I think, and would probably kind of address both of them.
Yeah, that sounds like it. That sounds like something that perhaps we should follow up with a little bit more in detail. I was unaware of the Plain Writing Act, so I think as a Power BI community, we need to kind of make sure we're in compliance. So I think these are great questions. yeah, perhaps we can have a meeting in terms of what are the best practices to ensure that we can meet these compliances. All right, well, that's all I had for my section here. If you guys have any other questions, I did provide my email in there. You can reach out to me. You can also reach out to Stephen Butler. We work next to each other, and oftentimes, we can definitely both tackle some of these. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, David. Super helpful and informative, and thanks for sharing your awesome dashboards with the community. Thanks to all the community members as well for interacting with us and for your great engagement during David's presentation. I like the idea of having an accessibility section. I saw potentially some volunteers who are on the forefront of that. So that's an awesome segue as well to some announcements from our group. I'm going to reorder a little bit our agenda for today. So we'll do some announcements and then shift over to office hours so that if anyone needs to head off, they can do so without missing the announcements. So for those of you who have been involved with us for some time now, you might know that at one point we were using Microsoft Fabric user groups to kind of organize this group, post resources, share the recordings from these sessions, and that was a great tool. Microsoft Fabric, however, is moving away from that platform, and we're no longer eligible as a group to use it. So we had a lot of conversations about how we would move forward, and we landed on reverting back to the California Community College listserv service as our primary form of communication, because that worked really well in the past, and is still kind of the primary way that people are communicating with each other to troubleshoot issues. So going back to that, hopefully will make your lives easier by streamlining our platforms. And then we developed a Google site, which will hopefully be the solution to having a place to host all of our resources in one spot so that you don't have to search through listserv archives to find everything. This site is in development still, so feel free to check it out. Our contact information is on there, so if you're interested in helping to develop the resources section, or if you have ideas, feel free to reach out to any of the organizers of this group. And we also have on the events page a survey in there. If you're interested in being a presenter at one of these sessions, we've been meeting for several years now, and the sessions have taken many forms, so we're really flexible about how long the presentations are. We can do 1 to several presenters at a time during a session. We meet 4 times a year, and the presentations are always super helpful. Whether you think so or not, you're all doing amazing work, and even, really simple things can be really helpful for the community to learn from and to dialogue about. So please feel free to check out the site and consider filling out the presenter sign-up form if you're interested in sharing your work with the community. Perhaps some of you with experience in accessibility in Power BI, I would highly recommend that you fill that form out, or plead, maybe that's the better word. Are there any questions about those announcements, kind of the future directions of the group, the listserv, or the Google site? Awesome. If something comes to mind, feel free to throw it in the chat, or use the listserv or the site to talk with us. It's 10:42, so we have about 15 minutes for office hours. This is a new practice that we've started where we're encouraging folks to come with questions, thoughts, ideas that we can work together as a community on. It's kind of a first come, first serve situation. So jump in there if you have something you want to chat about, and we'll start brainstorming.
Um, Silence. I'm going to break it. So I am wondering if anyone on the meeting has experience with working. As I mentioned, we have multiple data models, and we're trying to put together some of our student journey metrics. We have an enrollment data model. We have basically a outside thing that we have to do with FTES and with some of our other items, and then we have I believe in FTES data model too, that are all going into this one dashboard. And so the problem we're having, as I kind of mentioned, is we were thinking, okay, we can publish it on our website, we can put the navigation on the website, but the way that's turning out is we can't do it as a public page if we do that, because there's some issues it's having. When we put it on there, when you click on it, it takes you to a different tab, right? And so now you have to find the original tab. We can't get it to go back. There's all sorts of craziness. So we were given sort of had four choices, which was to either make the page private, which we don't want it to be private. It's our metrics. We want it to be a public site. We remove the navigation, and then folks would have to navigate through the scorecard. But then whenever they click, it's going to start doing it gets messy. We keep it how it is now, which is it opens a new tab, or we have somebody who's our web administrator, because we update our website, our web pages in our office ourselves. So we would have to have the web administrator for the college make any changes we wanted to that page so that we could keep it public and have the navigation. So does anybody know a better way to deal with multiple data models and navigation for one dashboard or report?
When you say multiple data models, do you mean those are like a separate reports?
The models that underlie the dashboards or that underlie the reports, because I guess they're considered reports. There's multiple data models underlying the reports. So the reports that we're calling dashboards are pulled from our different data models, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, essentially, I think there's always this a little bit of confusion about what is the dashboard versus the report. And essentially, I think most of the things we actually produce are reports. And the dashboards, I believe, they kind of like a pinboard, so to speak. So you can make a dashboard where you can take a certain visual from whatever report and pin to it so it'd be accessible.
Yeah. And I think I mean reports in that case. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and I was thinking sometimes I'm thinking about the same thing, and mostly I think from developer perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of focus to have very strictly defined, so this report is for a specific purpose, right? So when you're trying to kind of combine different things, you basically you essentially mashing a few things together, right? Especially if they interact with each other. For example, if you do like a selection on your, let's say, I don't know, student site, and you pick a demographic, and then you want the FTS for that demographic to reflect, you're actually connecting the reports together so it filters one another, right? Is that what you're trying to achieve?
No, in this case, it's so it's like FTES is from an external source because it's the apportionment reports. Needs-based financial aid is from our enrollment model. Awards are from our outcomes model. And so they're not interacting with each other, but they need to be one single thing that doesn't open separately. Like kind of like what David was showing, where you sort of could go in, press on it, and then you'd go into it, and then you could go back and you can go in again and press on it.
If you don't, I mean, like I don't want to, hog everybody's time. Do you mind, like, as arranging the time we can meet and take a look?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'll have to get with our person who's putting that particular dashboard together. But yeah, for sure. Thanks, Emil.
And I just wanted to say, David, thank you so much. I mean, I really enjoyed that one because I love that, the keeping it simple motto and very like accessible and straightforward. And I've seen some examples of the dashboards when they actually do scrolling. I mean, if there's a vertical page that you can like scroll through, and it was like a mind-blowing concept for me. So this is a really cool application. I'm looking forward to like experimenting with that.
Thanks, Rachel, for the question, and thanks, Emil, for your willingness to troubleshoot. I can't help it all. I have many situations where my data are patched together and it needs to get fixed. So thanks for the question. I'm seeing in the chat there was a question, should this be part of governance system, such as standards and cataloging, discussion about we're developing some standards. Another cool potential future conversation if anyone does have. I know we've done presentations on like style guides in the past, and that kind of sounds beyond that.
I actually have a question. And so I guess I'll take advantage of this opportunity, being that we have David here. And so we could, we still got a few minutes to pick his brain. So I, David, when I go on and I guess it's kind of a follow-up to the one I had earlier, but the question I had earlier. So when I went on the public dashboards, the ones posted on the RCCD website, there's like I'm able to scroll down a lot through that on the web page itself. And so is that kind of what I took away from that is like there's multiple reports that you hyperlinked into the browser? Like I was curious to know if you could elaborate on that a little bit more. Again, like I think that's one of the first times I've seen it where it's just like it's that many reports embedded on one web page. And so just yeah, I wanted to see if you could elaborate on that process a bit more.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Jaime, I know that when we were considering posting things online, public-facing dashboards, we looked at several different, I guess, versions. We worked with our webmaster to figure out what was possible in terms of what they say, we can do,
Mm,
and what Power BI can do as well in terms of how you publish things.
hmm
So there were several iterations that we kind of went through. One was, I think normally you see like a link, right, that will take you to a dashboard.
hmm
And I think the goal behind what we did was to try to provide like a preview so folks can see what the report looks like. Oftentimes, people at the colleges share reports with others, and then they kind of know what it looks like in terms of the landing page, so they can say, "Oh, that's the report, that we're using, and it looks like this," and it helps with like sharing and standardizing how folks are using it. But if you want, in terms of like the details of how we got it like that, I think it was just there was something in Power BI that I needed to share with our webmaster, and they were able to kind of maximize the width and the height. It took a little bit of back and forth, but it's definitely doable. Again, it may not work for all colleges, so that's just something that we wanted to try out. We may change it to something a little bit if we get too many reports on that, single single web page. We may have to change our model, but for now. The goal was again, to provide a bird's eye view of the reports and then what they look like from the landing page.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thanks, David.
Following up on Jaime's question, so when you click on any of those guided pathways things, for example, you still have those continuing below. Is there a thought to, like you have the student head count and then does that get confusing for people? Or do you ever have any issues with that?
So, could you just explain that a little bit more? Are you talking about within the same report or a different report that's,
Uh,
say, below that
um,
one?
so a different report. So I click on, say, persistence demographics and guided pathways, and it takes
Mhm.
me to that persistence demographics. Beautiful. But if I scroll down, then I see that there's still the student headcount dashboard and the course success dashboard and the programs. And is this all part of the guided pathways, or is this the original
Right.
dashboards that were on the page?
Right. So yes, those would be those are different dashboards.
Oh,
They're
okay,
all
okay.
on the same page. Again, the guided pathways one would just be at the top. But yes,
Mhm.
if you were to continue scrolling down, you would see the other public facing dashboards that we share. And
Okay.
again, that's just a layout question that we kind of asked ourselves. How do we share this in a way that's um, usable at the same time but accessible?
Mhm.
So that was what we kind of we tried a few different things, but we may, as I was talking to Jaime about it, I think we may consider changing it up. But yes, we're interested in what works best, so we may kind of move away from that to see. Again, a lot of it is trial and error.
Mhm.
But yes, it could be. I think it could be confusing for first-time users. So that's something maybe that we can look into in terms of either creating maybe like little buckets of data where they, let's say they just want to look at some areas. I think that's a great question. So I'm gonna think about it a little bit more.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, David. We have 5 minutes left, so we could entertain one more question, and if there are none, we could sign off. So kind of speak now.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hi, Anthony.
Guys, Anthony from Citrus College, and thank you everyone. It's been great presentations, and so we're working on a daily enrollment dashboard, and it has we're connected to our live like data set to our Oracle database. So we have like our ODSP like tables, and we're connecting directly to that, and so we already have one dashboard for like our FTES and enrollment. So like every day it updates in the morning. So, but like, you just get the picture of how it looks for that day. So what we're trying to do is instead of just showing that like static kind of view, we're trying to show like the trends so that you can look at what's our enrollment from like the first day of the semester to like the end. And so the issue that we've had is so we can't even like load all the data because we have a few years of data, and I guess it's so like large that I like even setting so far we have not been able to set up like the even just to like load it all into Power BI. Like it would not refresh like when we're transforming the data. So I'm just wondering like 'cause I feel like there's different Power BI colleges who have made these type of dashboards. So I'm wondering like how is your like data like set up on like the back end? Or has anyone like dealt with this issue before?
I mean, I can take a stab at it if if you want. I think Stephen also has a lot to say about it. So that is a valid concern, I think, because we have something similar. It's like we call it the enrollment management daily snapshot. So what that does is it takes a daily snapshot of every course section for whatever's offered that term, and then it just saves it. So again, it doesn't seem like a lot of data, but over a few years, you get millions and millions of records, which can definitely slow down if you, let's say, are using the traditional Power BI data flows, where you kind of pull all the data in there, and then you kind of filter down, and then you kind of narrow down what you need. One thing that we've tried, at least for think of it, Tuesday report, the FTS Tuesday report. is to aggregate the data in SQL. So let's say what's the lowest level that we need? We just need departments aggregated by FTS, aggregated by enrollments, aggregated by headcounts. And that way, what you pull in, it is not a lot of information in terms of something that can slow down the processing. So that's kind of one way that we get around that. We just aggregate the data to the point where when you bring it into Power BI, it's going to be a lot less records because I mean, it's tricky if you bring in like 20 million records and expect it to kind of refresh, in a fraction of a second. That's not going to happen. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I saw another hand up, but yeah, that's what we did.
We have a dashboard that does that. It's what David's talking about. I think one of the keys is that we already had it was a table that was kind of grandfathered in before that did all the aggregation for the FTS and everything at the section level before we started taking the snapshots of it. So it's a little easier to handle than the individual student records. So that was key, I think, in creating that.
Yeah, we have something, we have a few of our enrollment dashboards that update daily, and they do like FTES and headcount. We have daily comparisons, key date comparisons, and then trend data. And we only show 3 years of data, and then we show differences across years based on key dates. I did not build the data model on this, but some of my colleagues did, and one of them, Grace Robertson, is amazing with SQL and amazing with building data models. So if you want more information, her contact, just reach out to me, and I'll put my email in the chat, because she and Bo Nelson are building these out and doing a fantastic job. It does still take a long time to update. At least it did, especially when we were doing it in Power Query Editor way back. But they've figured out something. So I just put that in there.
All right. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Anthony, for the question. We are at 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. The hosts will stick around for a little bit in case there's any lingering questions or comments. But thanks, everyone, for sticking it out for the full hour. We appreciate this community, and this is exactly how it's supposed to go. We're all in this together, and Power BI updates its tools pretty frequently, so it's hard to stay up to date with it all. So we appreciate you all for being here and for dialoguing today. Massive kudos to David for sharing his dashboards. Thank you so much. And we hope you have a wonderful long weekend, everyone.